basically it automatically generates facial animation, so full facial animation from your audio or audio and text or audio, text, and metadata inputs. The input of metadata from script is our biggest, focus right now, as well as just constant optimization. It's always been about facilitating creative excellence and artistic excellence and getting people to their design, like whatever it is, the execution of their vision, I guess, as effectively and efficiently as possible in the parts of the pipeline where we have influence or integrated.
Welcome to the CG Pro Podcast. This is episode 101. And we are excited today to have Sarah with us, Sarah Watling. If you enjoy today's episode, like and subscribe, obviously, but check out our website at becomecgpro.com. We have a newsletter sign up there. You can find out all about these podcasts and the shows and all the community events that we do in person and online. So today's special guest is Sarah Watling. She is co-founder and CEO of JALI Research, which is an amazing, innovative company that's doing all kinds of things, but mainly focused on doing AI lip sync in games and cinematics. And I'm going to bring Sarah on because she will explain it a whole lot better than I can. Sarah, pleasure to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Ed. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, great to see you too. Yeah, it's been a minute since NAB. And we had some fun there, and you were demonstrating the thing that you do. But before we get into all that, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your background? How did you get here? It's a really interesting place to get to. I'm really fascinated by what led here. And were there any kind of inklings of this when you were younger, or how did you get here?
Definitely a unconventional route, but I don't think that's inconsistent among a lot of my peers now. I started in live music production at the Jazz Festival in Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is tiny, and then moved on to larger scale productions from there in England, actually at London, at a club called Cargo in Shoreditch. When I was working there, I actually always wanted to be a writer. So that was sort of the angle, was always trying to get close to either promoters or producers or journalists that were looking for somebody who was scrappy and just wanted to get whatever they wrote into print. It turned out if you wrote a decent press release, it would often get printed verbatim. So it was kind of a nice spot to be in. At that time, I was like 19, 20. I was there for a few years and got to travel over a bunch of Europe doing that. And I was in love with arts administration. So just not necessarily the work of it, because that is pretty thankless and brutal. And when I mean work, I mean the day-to-day lift. But the payoff when it did was always so gratifying, bringing artists that were not necessarily easily found or easy to sell, really, to really appreciative audiences. And you mix that up with some popular, headliners. And it was just a really great experience. We moved to Toronto about 16 years ago with my partner and co-founder, Piff Edwards. And JALI is the outcome of his earlier thesis work as a PhD at the Dynamics Graphics Project at U of T. There he met Karan Singh and Chris Landreth, Eugene Fumet, who all have, on their own pretty significant contributions to the earlier development of Maya, to graphics, particle simulation, that kind of thing. Chris himself was an Academy Award winner. When their first publications started to get attention, it was actually quite a lot of attention, and they needed someone in the background to just start picking up the phone when it rang or answer an email when it came in. And it really just spiraled from there. We've been a bootstrapped company since we've started. So, understanding the balance and the tension between trying to scale demand and also maintain focus on a roadmap without sort of accumulating a bunch of bloat has been a huge part of the way we've run our company, which has been small, lean, focused. So I did the tech transfer. I started managing the contracts. I did all of the discovery calls, figured out a lot of the earliest, barriers to adoption in our first product offerings, which was exclusively lip sync. And, a couple years later, we added the whole face, and it's kind of spiraled from there, or grown from there.
Grown and spiraled.
Grown or spiraled, whichever, whatever the day.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible adventure doing all of those things, especially starting a business, which is very challenging and rewarding thing to do. But very cool to hear that story, and definitely echoes of seeing some of those people going through my own career, Chris's work particularly. I remember that from being into Maya for about 20 years, and seeing some of his short films and films. Very cool. How long have you guys been doing this for?
So
in JALI?
Yeah, will be our 9th birthday, actually, at the end of this month. So nothing not that huge. Next year, if we make it to 10, that'll be pretty exciting. And it is exciting, actually, to have been around this long. It's not been an easy...
Nine's pretty good.
And it has not been easy, right? I think everyone in our space can share war stories about the last 4 years, the sort of post-COVID fault drop-off has had a huge and continuing impact on the space as everything has sort of equalized after that huge boom. 9 years is good.
It's amazing. I mean, as I said, you've beaten the odds. The statistics for number of companies making it past 5 years, I think, is around 50%, and then it drops off significantly towards 10. So you've already beaten the odds to get to 9. CG Pro's been around for 6, so you're already like a few steps ahead of us, and we're all hoping to keep continuing doing what we're doing. But in this crazy time, it's a very interesting time. I think a lot of opportunity at the moment because there is so much change. And you mentioned some of that change. So going through some of those moments that you mentioned, COVID, the film strikes, the onset of AI, writer strikes, all of those things. Any one of those things is a huge trigger of a crisis, if you like, and crisis being a point of making decisions.
That's right.
As opposed to it all going wrong. It's very often thought of as it all going wrong, but it's really a moment to reconsider, to make decisions, to pivot if necessary. What's it been like for the past 9 years going through all of those? You've been through like more triggers than the average 10 years, I would say.
I would say the most impactful ones, or the ones that we learned the most from, were definitely when we started in the earliest days, as things were rapidly evolving from earlier iterations of machine learning research, and choosing to stick to a sort of judicious approach of machine learning application in our own product development. That was a challenge, I think, to do, just because by choosing that, you were almost like choosing whether or not you were going to disingenuously signal that you were still heavily using machine learning so that you'd have access to, available funding grants when we were still at the university and that kind of thing. And it was always that really pushed me as a writer to position the innovations and the opportunities and the benefits around what we were doing from a methodology standpoint. So from a procedural and programmatic methodology, where we study phenomenon, reduce it to its algorithmic essence, and then implement that from an engineering standpoint, and then build the UI around that. I think it was innovative. That that moment was very innovative at the time because of its opposition to the trend. Lots of game developers, will, opt for procedural methodologies because they're as lightweight as they are. Deterministic quality presents its own set of advantages and disadvantages, of course, just like everything does. But you're always doing a sort of, risk analysis, and you're choosing based on what's going to get you the greatest benefit for your aim. We stuck pretty, with a lot of conviction through lots of instances where we were getting either encouragement and or pressure, depending on who it was from, to adopt, other methods. I remember when we were very, staunch about having a 2-stream input system where it was both audio and text for analysis. And we'd done a lot of research and published research into audio analysis, audio only, and just found that the results were not consistent with the value that we were delivering to our customers in our first product, which was editability at a very granular level. And there's a certain amount of accuracy that's required for that at the curve level, at the curve data level, which to this day is still how we, build the product, so that our output stays, light, editable, light from computational footprint, also in terms of accumulation of file size. We don't produce images, we produce animation curves, and those curves are like keyframe curves, that kind of thing. As we've gone on, emergent technologies also put other pressures on it. The biggest thing I think for us, and I think it's consistent for people in the industry as well, is when something new is introduced that shows so much promise or is positioned with delivering so much promise, whether it's on the creative capacity side or it's on the cost reduction side, it creates a lot of noise. I think, from a company that's just running sort of like trying to run repeatable sales cycles, it all of a sudden it introduces like a whole new thing that you have to quickly get your head around, understand what's real, what's not real, and where does your solution sort of sit in a easy to communicate comparative to your customers. That's happened many times to us since we've released the product. And, now even on this side, some of those initial engineering and design principles of keeping the software and the code base small, keeping it algorithmic and repeatable and modelable and editable, has proven to be a win for us. It still is a win for us today.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, or very interesting, that you started before all of this was cool, before the hype, essentially. What was it like before 3-4 years ago, when suddenly this started kicking up, like everybody and their dog is interested in AI at this point, but when you started, that was not the case.
It was, it wasn't like it wasn't started, but the easy to access, not alternatives, but options or new tools weren't as plentiful at the time. So there definitely wasn't, like at the research level, which 3 or 4 years ago, we were still really heavily embedded in the academic space, just by virtue of our founding team and the amount of publications that we were either consulting on or contributing to or publishing ourselves. And our, Karan Singh, for example, he's still very active in publishing. He's working on a lot of exciting work in Gaussian splats right now, for example. That pressure was always there, but the sort of easy to access and shiny examples of what could actually be implemented was not the same 4 years ago as it is today. And I see that sort of static and noise layer is deeper, but it's also more interesting because it's less. 4 years ago, it was like flashy, and then it would dissipate really quickly because for the most part, either the solutions weren't repeatable or really implementable outside of a development environment or outside of a very specific custom individual use case. And a lot of studios are developing their own technologies. So in addition to, whoever our competitors are, oftentimes when we're in a discovery call or that kind of thing, we're also competing with internal talent as well, and then internally developed tools. So fast forward 4 years from now, not only is there so many more models that have been implemented into easily accessible applications, you have now I would say at least 2 years of commentary and dissection and trial and error and demonstrations that aren't just, very shiny sizzle sort of demos produced by the tool developer, but by users themselves. And that's where I am always now looking for, where's the real analysis? What's meaningful? What can I bring back to our CTO? Like, it's rarely a video. It's mostly like a screen grab of like a, 5 or 6 message long thread of like, okay, this discussion is really interesting. You should take a look at this. It interferes with sales cycles. You just have that much more to talk about. And so it's not, from a business economic standpoint, you can consider interference. From a business research standpoint, it's valuable.
So it's kind of both. It's good, neither good nor bad. Both.
That's right.
Good and bad. Yeah.
Yeah. You're just keeping up with that much more information all the time.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure the public's perception of shifting significantly, and you having to manage the story and the myth busting and all of that kind of stuff. It's very fascinating. Tell us a little bit about it. Tell us about about JALI and what it does. I've seen it myself, but tell us what it does.
So we have it's basically it automatically generates facial animation, so full facial animation from your audio or audio and text or audio, text, and metadata inputs. The input of metadata from script is our biggest focus right now, as well as just constant optimization. The bigger a project gets, like from our standpoint, it's about trying to enable the degree of fidelity and input influence that a team wants to put into our system to generate out of the box animation that's closer to a state for polish than it was without that direction. So, we look at metadata as instances of either writer input or director input. Right now, it's focused on. It used to be sort of more of a monologue system. You would process lines per character, and the biggest value proposition I would say would be about scale. So a project like Cyberpunk had something like 2 million lines of dialogue, and it was a pretty amazing first project to work on. Companies like Obsidian, last year they put out 3 fairly commercially successful games, each building on the pipeline for Unreal that we had developed with them, sort of not custom, but they were a really generous sort of co-development partner in terms of providing us with the kind of user feedback that prevents us from designing things in a silo, and they're also their own expertise, and so now I would say that our solution is no longer just a background utility. I think people are using it more and more for cinematics. One of the qualities of the output animation that seems like a throwaway or boilerplate, bit of text, which is like the easy to edit, that kind of thing, is the cleanliness of the curves and the speed of processing. So we can process your in-game and like all of the animation, character animation in a game, something like 300,000 lines 2 or 3 times a day, which allows you to actually go back to those points where you made those changes and actually continue on that instead of having to wait 2 or 3 days, which was what it used to be, 3 or 4 years ago with the first iteration. making things, once we've got a workflow sort of locked, then it's the work shifts immediately to, can we make it smaller? Can we make it faster? Can we make it so it doesn't generate, 4 or 5x additional files or duplicates or whatever, really boring stuff? But that does tend to make the difference. Just getting back to the curve thing, we've had a number of instances now where people are either using the software and the settings within it to match captured performances, so that it's actually capable of hitting that much closer to where you are going to be wanting to polish. The ideal, or the best part about that, is you're really not ever having to clean those curves. If you looked at it in a graph editor, it looks exactly as it should, and it's not, no noise, no jitter, all of that. That's a lot of time and money. Like when your point in some of the promo material about invisible costs, that's a huge piece of that. When you think about the cost calculator for high quality animation for either cinematics or in-game cutscenes, that kind of thing, you're usually starting with capture, and then quite a lot of individuals whose titles are facial animation, but they're really just cleaning motion capture data, and then polishing. So that equation to final render is a lot faster, I'm finding, or studios are finding, using JALI out of the gate, which is kind of a nice place for us to sit. And it's kind of paved the way for our transition into deeper into cinematics and more sort of feature style and independent film use. I think what you saw at NAB was our interactive character. So the Ruby AI character, which is a pretty fun project that we've also been working on.
Yeah, that was really cool. And I think obviously everybody's getting into the chat experience with a machine more than ever before, and being able to put a face to it, having it be more than text in the chat, I think is really really interesting. It's interesting having both directions for it, I guess. I'm sat in a global objects right now, doing a shoot today in a mocap space, so it's very, very topical for what's going on right now.
Yeah,
and mostly body mocap that's going on right now, but a little face as well. And you guys focus mostly on the face, though, right?
Yeah, when we started, the goal was actually to be able to conceive of the full 3D character, and so it naturally contemplated body, but so much is going on a face that we still find that there's more and more work to do. And there's also, when you, like we were talking about before, when you're making decisions, at a certain point, we're always evaluating, is this something that we want to build ourselves, or do we want to look to acquire technology to bring in-house in order to facilitate that, or do we want to partner with great teams that are building the complementary components of a full system like that? So yeah, we're still doing mostly faces, but the faces have moved beyond humans, so much more stylized characters we're handling very easily, as well as creatures. We've animated dragons and
cool. How does that work then? Do you put in a meow and you get a cat moving?
Yeah, so sometimes because the system now pretty much handles any kind of, it's the models that the audio processing are sort of built on have processed enough data now and are robust enough that it really doesn't take much to make any kind of corrections for things that don't, that are out of vocabulary or something like that. So sometimes you would put in, I can't remember what the technical term is, it when you write what it sounds like. It's not phonetic, it's actually a different term, but in the place of that type of sound. And then again, being a model-based or a algorithmic solution, once we know what that's supposed to look like, we can write that into the code, and then it'll always do that for that particular type of character. You can then put that into the config of their profile, and that character will move in that way according to the controls. And our off-the-shelf product has its own rig and it has its own control scheme, which is great because a lot of smaller studios don't necessarily have that. When you would, I just found out, fairly recently, when you set up our software on another studio's rig, and the rigs say their control orientation along the XY axis is either not set or set backwards or something like that, like our connection setup will just automatically fix it. And then they can tell us later, like, oh, actually that was intentional. And you can like, well, you can also undo that. But it will kind of set it to what the industry standard would have been.
Right. Mm-hmm. And what's the experience like for somebody working with it? Is it kind of possible for a director to just to communicate with it directly and say, I want to be able to converse with it, if you like, without technical experience?
Coming.
Yeah. Cool.
So it's designed for right now for animators and technical animators and riggers. But as we said, as we've moved more into the cinematic space and to film, it's a deep tool. It's a very technical tool, and the UI improvements have been focused mostly on creating more of a shallow end for less technical use and building in more capability where technical teams are smaller. So there's quite a bit of rigging sort of expertise and care put into the way that the control board is set up. It's quite easy to use with a basic level of fluency in rigging animation and technical animation. So on the integration side, from the writer and the director standpoint, like that's now the direction that we're facing or that we're developing towards. And the benefit of having a solution that's so discreetly described and built is yielding some really exciting results for agentic UI actually being integrated into it to sort of so that the performative tasks that we used to be able to reduce from many to at least not repeat are now possible or will be possible just in natural language.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's great. So it's like I would keep talking about AI all day, pretty much at the moment. And lots of the sentiment. Actually, a recent guest that we had on the CG Pro show was talking about this as well, about how I think it was Phil saying how a lot of this is a UX problem as well as it being a technical problem. So, like making good user experience in UI around something could be the difference between success and failure or adoption or not. And
yes.
It's actually really hard to do. And I used to be a software engineer back in the day, 20 years ago, and then there was no UX. There wasn't such a term. Mm-hmm. UIs were made by the engineer, and they weren't very good. And now that's changed. But yeah, really trying to make things nice and easy to use is pretty hard to do.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting balance that you say that. We've lost time, I would say, like looking back, over focusing on UI before the engineering underneath was robust. Because it's almost like cart before the horse. But if you wait until too late and you have engineers doing the UI actual work, it's like fitting wheels on a moving car, and then it comes with its own challenges. So that's a really tightrope to walk. I would say we're still learning that, every day, where one team has to have a little bit more control over the way things are either laid out or how you're speaking to this level of control depth. But even when some of the earliest iterations of generative models were starting to be released, and ChatGPT became, that much more of a household word that like your mom is now talking about it, or like people that have zero understanding of what any of the underlying research or technology is trying to do or is doing. They know that, I use ChatGPT for this. And I think the thing that from a UI perspective that is like globally or universally captivating is the idea of just speaking something into existence, right? The prompt-based UI. Yeah.
Maybe one day thinking into existence. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I like how it's making something that's intermediate as well, because a lot of straight to image or straight to video becomes really hard to edit afterwards, which I'm sure you're very aware of. And this kind of doesn't have that issue, because you can go in, you've got the curves, you can change it after the fact. In cinematics, are you seeing this more going into like real time or rendered, or is that, I'm sure now, driving like open pose into generative AI, or just video into generative AI? What's kind of the split?
Yeah, I see mostly still a lot of persistence in like in the 3D pipeline. I think the 3D pipeline offers a pretty reliable anchor to go back and make changes without having to throw everything else away that it's either based on, so you can get to that error, or afterwards. And forgive me if I'm not answering your question directly, because I may not have fully understood it. And maybe I'll just wait and let you clarify.
Oh yeah, no, it sounds like you're going the right way.
Just want to make sure. But I do see a lot more interest and experimentation going into how far generated assets can be integrated with their 3D counterparts, and their interoperability. And that's a space that we're definitely focusing on as well, just continuing to participate, support teams that are doing those experiments, taking advantage of opportunities to play in those sandboxes when we can. And at Annecy, we'll see a little bit of that, the results of some of that, just how easily it is for our output data to import into other platforms, whether it's Engine or 2D or, yeah.
And what's the vibe like? What's it been like? Because it's probably changed a bunch over the years, but now AI gets a lot of heat around it because of the issues that it has, I guess, with copyright and control. Those two are kind of the main ones that people have issue with, but particularly around the copyright, and it also makes people upset who do things for a living, that these kinds of automations are saying that they can do instead or with. Or what's the reception been like over the years? Because this is doing some of that and has been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I think it's part of it's twofold. The saying it can do, it's about repeatability. So can it do what it said it was going to do, and then can it do it persistently over time and repeatably? I think there's something unique about a game build where that entire bit of software has to now operate reliably and as expected on the devices of millions of people, and whether it's being downloaded or people are still buying them in a hard copy form. There's the second consideration is about the size, what that means to the size of the build and the cost of doing it. And then I guess third is cost control itself. Like maybe you might have a team that's come up with a way to manage or encourage or propagate repeatability to a degree and in an area of the development that works for them. You've got the additional cost associated with running these models all the time. That's why I think you're having a hard time seeing them in truly interactive on-prem type experiences. So for like avatars, again, like if you're heavily reliant on cloud-based models to drive either the text to speech or the whatever, even in the Ruby project, you saw that we had the whole goal for that demo was for it to be like 100% local. And the hardware is really catching up to being able to process almost everything on the CPU level. And that's exciting. But we still actually had to go online for the TTS because the model was so big for us to run that. And so being able to deploy that, that cost goes up. It's a lot. And then back to the copyright issue, like you're chaining ownership, right? That's how, so for our, from our standpoint, we keep our software very agnostic, and what we ship is exclusively owned by us. The contracting is very, explicit to the T around where our software begins and ends. And we really do our best to keep it that way. So if we've used any kind of model in development, the next stage is to do it without it, figure out how to do it without it so that we don't have that problem and we don't have that ownership issue that's propagating. I think in games still, they're the most judicious industry around, assessing whether or not a technology is worth the cost or the risk. Mostly because I think the developers have been building, early iterations, whether it's been programmatic or not. Like the skills and the experience is just there to assess it. As soon as you get further out from that, we talk about avatar applications in a non M&E environment. It's a lot more education involved in terms of what they're contemplating, and they care more and less depending on the technical thing or the copyright thing, depending on what their application is.
Got it. Yeah. And you mentioned the local model thing. Has it helped or made it better or worse having more local models coming online like Gemma and that kind of thing?
Oh, definitely better. I think, at least for us, it gives you something to shoot for, definitely in terms of what we can build and how we can get things down. And our own cost calculation, as even like I alluded earlier to development that we're doing around being able to custom fit, director profiles, that is currently contingent on libraries we didn't build, or models we didn't build for the agentic component. When we get to ship stage, that's what our team and legal's already contemplating, is how much time and effort do we want to put in building our own, or is there a team out there that's really focused on building these tiny models, and there are. So yeah, that's what we're looking for
this week.
Yeah.
Interesting space. Yeah, all the little teeny 2Bs that are run on a phone, and up to the 31 billion parameter versions that still will run on a good laptop.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, really interesting space. They seem very capable.
Yeah, it's exciting time, and I like that. That space is, I think, where it's the right place for us to be looking for, where we're going to continue to build the software, because I don't think we're ever going to go in a direction where we are wanting to remove sort of critical components of process as a, in terms of what we are interested in and what inspires us, like simulation and imitation and sort of perfection in that way has never really been our goal or our interest. It's always been about facilitating creative excellence and artistic excellence, and getting people to their desire, like whatever it is, the execution of their vision, I guess, as effectively and efficiently as possible in the parts of the pipeline where we have influence or we're integrated. So yeah, it's all about assisted.
Yeah. And in that sense, like, what's your thoughts after watching a lot of people doing this and using it, artists and technical artists and various different types of people? How do you feel now that it's controlled the best, I guess? Is it with somebody who can perform really well, or somebody who can write really well, or somebody who's really technical, or a combination of all of those things?
Yeah, I think that this idea that these top level skills will no longer be required because you can just vibe code or that kind of thing is all consistent with a lot of the false kind of narratives I find kind of tedious around AI, and I think it really distracts from what's interesting about it. But they're driving the investment and the economic promise that we can just one guy alone can do this, and that kind of thing. And sure, I think it is very empowering for skilled visionaries because they have the understanding of how to execute. They know, when something is a mess versus something that is intentionally a deviation. That's big. I think that was Picasso, right? That was his whole thing was like, you have to understand the rules of visual art, and there's some real rules for abstract art to be not a mess. I think that will persist. I think writing, ironically, will persist as one of the most high-valued skills, especially in spaces like advertising and short-form content and that type of thing, where the video gen capabilities are reaching the point where what they're able to maintain and what is actually able to persist is now catching up to exactly the right time frame that is appropriate for some of this content, and it'll only get better and better. How that's written is going to make all the difference, between something that you have seen before versus something that's entirely new and interesting to audiences, because that's a triumvirate, right? Or triumvirate, or there's another word. My assistant told me that recently. I was like, and I can't remember it. But it's a relationship, right, between the creator. Yeah, it's not that. But it's a derivative of both triumvirate and trifecta.
Try something.
Yes, It's a try something. But between audience, creator, and medium.
Right. There's a feedback loop. They're not disconnected. They're connected.
Yeah.
And one influences the other. It's really interesting that there's a lot of theory going on at the moment, or myth, or bullshit, or whatever you want to call it, in the space. In what people always seem to want to be able to predict the future, so they can come back and say that they said that was going to happen, and the most often wrong. Most people are most often wrong when trying to predict the future. So it's very interesting. There's a lot of theory being banded around at the moment. It's interesting to hear your perspective, because you've been around this for longer, I'd say, than the average person, and you've seen the onset of it. And I mean, I was in an AI company before the hype too. I worked for a race car championship in a machine vision department, essentially, doing the same kind of thing before all of this noise began. And I studied it in some senses in the 90s as well, doing machine vision and AI and some very early forms of it, very immature versions of it. So it's been really interesting to see it finally 30 years later or whatever, getting this much attention. And I didn't think we would be in this position at this point in time. I didn't think that it was, especially that it was going to be this powerful and this big and this talked about. Back then it was like a few hippies in a room with sandals and in PhDs and big ideas and not enough compute.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Now we have
incredible to see where it's gone.
Yeah, more than, well, not everyone, but there's the resources are being directed at this with so much velocity and just scale that the iterations are coming so quickly. Whatever was the benchmark, a month ago is already probably being surpassed now, and it's I feel like this time is the best time, because this is the real sort of what they call the application layer, right? In the innovation sort of the trajectory of innovation. So it's always like rapid, and then it tapers off for quite a long time before these novel innovations and foundational technologies become widespread, adopted, and fully integrated. And a lot of times, like the internet or something like that, turned almost into utilities, which for some AIs, like AI search is, that's it. I mean, it will just be part of the search engine, experience from now on. I don't think anyone uses straight Google any longer. It's such a very simple and invisible UI that prompts you to ask another question and refine your own question. That was the big thing a year ago, was good in, good out is going to be the premise forever. But, the big focus was on good in and good out. Your output's only going to be as good as your query or your question, which, kind of goes to my point about where I see the emergence of technical or professional skills being, writing being among them. It's the same premise.
Lots of plot. So the quality of the quality of the idea, I think, is what you're speaking about through that. Like 100%. The input being the idea, and if it's a bad idea, then AI doesn't help you make it.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it can help you like unstick creative blocks, I think, but it doesn't get you a great idea on its own. And it's really all of the things you're describing, the inputs, the text, the speech, in the broader sense.
Yeah, insight, perspective. Even so there's a book. It's really thin. It's called it's like a management book. It's called Outcomes Over Output. And I think when I met you the first time, I said, AI is not going to make someone with no one to say have something to say. That's not what's going to happen. What will happen, I think, inevitably, and didn't need AI to happen. It was happening based on the ability of data analysis about streamer behavioral and preferences and choices and how long you watched a thing for. And now we have 47 versions of the Christmas Prince on Netflix to have to scroll through, because that's what the data was saying is popular during Christmas. Where that kind of bloat and glut it's inevitable. What will be interesting is not about how people use AI to make what we've already seen, but what the kind of emergent genres that we can't even really put definition around yet because we haven't seen it yet. And that's exciting from the art side. From a business standpoint, the intelligence, it's, again, you can have all of the intelligence, just like a CEO with good or bad advisors. If they don't have the experience themselves, they're going to suffer from that, and they may or may not have the runway to continually learn from their mistakes.
Yeah, that's an amazing business insight there for anyone that hasn't experienced it, like cash flow and the realities of your brilliant idea going out in the world and actually sticking and getting people's interest enough for them to pay for it and continue to pay for it. You adapt and pivot to all the changing world that we live in, which is seemingly speeding up. There's a question that's come in here from the audience. Someone's asking whether there is an online demo that you can point them towards. They've said they've recently worked at Flawless AI and have an amazing tool set for dubbing. They're just interested if you have something they can try.
Yeah, sure. You can definitely reach out. We don't have a how to use it demo because we generally license our software for like B2B. There's enough, I think, to infer what it does from the videos that are on the website. But if you're interested in chatting a little bit more about how it works, just email me. I'm happy to talk to you or put you in touch with one of our sales or technical team to share more.
Cool. Yep. That's great. Well, ask Sarah and she will point you in the right direction. The really interesting what you were talking about with the feedback loop of the audience, and the audience is a an umbrella term, I guess, for anything, whether it's a piece of software or a piece of content or a movie or whatever it is that people are consuming. The necessary connectivity between them and the feedback between them, I think, is hugely important, and something which I think the executives maybe in some of the companies that are responsible for distributing content are not always thinking about. But we're seemingly seeing a trend towards more creator economy, or even in films, for people coming from a place where they've already got fans, like people have already got fans on YouTube, therefore they get hired because they're a known entity and they're proven. And speaking of the creator space, is there any way for them? I know you're mentioning B2B, but are there any ways for them to use your products or try benefit from what you're doing?
So we work with like the full sort of spectrum of user types. Whether it's like our main business model is definitely for studios. But we work with independents. We do generally run at least one. We're starting a new one in the fall of student cohorts, so that they can, start getting comfortable with the solution. We are looking at, because Blender is definitely support for Blender is coming from us, and so that community definitely is a different makeup than the standard sort of Maya. It'll be a different way of licensing, I think, and that's exciting. So that's sort of the real sort of like widespread, sort of easier to download and easier accessible for sure, is part of the future growth plans and scale plans for the company. But for now, we mostly work with individuals that we are either really kind of jazzed about their work ourselves and want to support them, and then see what they do. So at Annecy, there's an independent filmmaker who's released his short film, and he's doing a talk about how he basically used our software from the very beginning, from the earliest stages of script development and character development, and how the value of having the 3D asset that you're going to be using in your, even if it's not, finally finished, but like animatable at the very beginning, like your animatics become not just a stage that you then have to recreate and throw away. Like it's all sort of persistent and iterative towards final render, and allowed him to overcome quite a number of sort of typical independent budgeting and production challenges, as well as opened up a lot of interesting experimentation for how he could use that 3D backbone across a number of different, like I said, in 2D platforms. And you saw some of the sort of AI treatments with our friends at IEL, with using our software as the backbone and then Luma on top.
Yeah, that was super cool. Definitely everybody should check out IEL as well. We've got another question here from the audience. Direction, but
I can't hear you.
Anything that's able to be talked about. You can't hear me?
Yeah, just do you mind repeating the question? Just, you literally started to.
Oh, okay. Maybe the streams broke up. Good old live broadcast. Can you hear me okay now?
I can.
Okay. So a question from the audience here. Somebody asked, I know how you touched on the future feature film direction, but I'd love to hear anything that's able to be talked about how us 2D guys might see in 1 or 2 years.
Definitely, if you are paying attention to anything that we're doing at Annecy, that's a big part of what we're showcasing. As soon as I have assets that the artist is comfortable with that will go in the presentation, I'll have a bit better sense of the timeline for pushing those out, either before or after the event.
Okay, great. Well, definitely share that with us, and we will share it with the community as well when you have it.
It's been exciting work.
Yeah, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the community? Any places that people can find you, or anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah. I talked about sort of advancing into sort of more upstream of production. So that's a huge project. Blender's a big project. These experiments in 2D really opened up a design sort of opportunity that we didn't know was that obvious. So that is something that we are hoping to accelerate as soon as possible, because it's something that's missing, I think, in the space, in the available tool sets. And if someone is interested in talking to me about the 2D stuff, I really am interested in talking to you. In August of this year, we will be pushing out like the third sort of significant version release of the software, which will address some of the biggest challenges I think we've come to understand people are having in the issue. So exporting assets and maintaining integrity, between platforms, the ability to handle, really different styles, different from, either humans or and then creatures, that kind of thing, as long as they're talking and in conversation. Some of the models that were animation models that, again, not AI models, but algorithmic models that we are introducing will move the performance away from monologue to dialogue, which is exciting. In the fall is the student cohort. Again, it's a limited enrollment, but the idea is a focus number of access to the software, a project, some sessions in person and live. So those ones will be open, and to work on a particular project.
How can people find out about that?
All of this is going to be on our website.
That enrollment?
Yeah, so registration will start in the summer, or not in the summer, sorry, in autumn, and more information is going up about that in the next couple of weeks. There's some, placeholder boiler, but there's also, if you go on our website, there's the whole cohort is based on the success of a number of other webinars and programs that we've done in the past. So you'll get a sense of the kind of programming that we have done. The ethos is generally industry tool introduction and familiarity and training, but with a necessary combination or balance with foundational animation and rigging. Teaching. Sorry, education. Lost the word. I think that's a lot that we've got going on. We've got a couple of fun case studies. If you're going to Unreal Fest, we'll have somebody there. If you're going to be at Gamescom, we will also be there. I said Annecy like a bunch of times. We'll be at XDS. We're in
Amazing.
Toronto. If you live in Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, jaliresearch.com for anybody who wants to go check that out. And yeah, thanks for sharing all of the places that people can find you. Is there any others, any things you guys do on social media, places people can follow you?
We basically wherever most people are. So we're LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, or X. Sorry, I can't say.
It's going to be Twitter.
Thank you. I can't say X. I think we have a Blue Sky account. I'm not sure. I know we're on Instagram.
Cool. Good. Yep. Covered all the bases.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Ed, for having me. That was fun.
You bet. Thanks for being on. Thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And check out, for everybody who wants to check out what they're doing at jaliresearch.com. Thanks to our audience for coming and asking great questions. Thanks to Global Objects for hosting me today to the place to sit and do this from that's not in my studio. If you want to come and see what we're doing at CG Pro, we have an AI for Filmmakers webinar coming up on June 25th at noon. So sign up for that, and we'll be going through some free educational experiences, and you can come check out what we do at CG Pro. Thanks again to everybody for today. We'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye for now.